Hello world, welcome to Timeless. This is our YouTube series, Real Realities and Beyond the Known, where we explore the mysteries of science that few have ever heard of. In this series, we uncover real ideas and fascinating theories about the universe, from secrets of distant galaxies to the possibilities of time travel and the technologies of the future. Each episode takes you on a journey to explore concepts that are rarely discussed but could change how we see the world. Please join us. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us comments. In today's episode, we will discuss interstellar travel. We will refer seven major topics. First, choosing the star. Second, engine propulsion type and its parameters. Third, speed, achievable velocities for interstellar travel. Fourth, relativistic effects and Lorentz factor. Fifth, spaceship type and size. Sixth, mission goals. Seventh, timescale and time frame. So, begin with uh, first section, choosing the star, Proxima Centauri and Proxima Centauri b. Interstellar travel in its nascent stages presents a plethora of choices in terms of destinations. One of the fundamental decisions that will guide the course of such a mission is the selection of the star system to target. The chosen star must offer proximity, scientific interest, and potentially habitable conditions on an exoplanet. For humanity's first crewed interstellar journey, Proxima Centauri stands out as an ideal candidate for a number of reasons. So, Proxima Centauri, a gateway to the stars. Proxima Centauri is part of Alpha Centauri star system, the closest stellar system to our own, located approximately 4.3 light-years away from Earth. Proxima Centauri is a red dwarf star, smaller and cooler than our Sun. Though not visible to the naked eyes, Proxima Centauri has garnered immense interest due to its proximity and potential for its planets to harbor life. The star itself is not most remarkable in terms of size or brightness, but it holds significant scientific value. It is part of trinary system with Alpha Centauri A and Alpha Centauri b, with Proxima Centauri being the finest of the three. The position of the system is crucial for researchers, as it follows for the study of a wide range of astrophysical phenomena in a relatively small region of space. Additionally, Proxima Centauri is relatively stable in its activity, unlike more erratic stars which could pose risks to potential planetary atmospheres or spacecraft. Proxima Centauri b, a potential Earth-like world. One of the most compelling reasons for selecting Proxima Centauri as the decision for humanity's first interstellar mission is the discovery of Proxima Centauri b. This planet orbiting in the habitable zone of Proxima Centauri has sparked considerable excitement in the scientific community. Proxima Centauri b has a mass similar to Earth and is located in the star's Goldilocks zones, where conditions may be right for liquid water to exist on its surface. The planet's surface temperature could allow for liquid water, making it a prime candidate for further study in search of extraterrestrial life. While Proxima Centauri b represents numerous challenges, such as the potential of harmful radiation from the host star due to its flare activity, the scientific interest it offers is undeniable. It's an ideal candidate for exploration by interstellar mission. The proximity of Proxima Centauri, 4.3 light-years, is an essential factor as well. While much farther than any space probe has ever traveled, it is the nearest star to Earth that offers planetary body within a potentially habitable zone. Why Proxima Centauri? There are several factors that make Proxima Centauri the best choice for an interstellar mission, particularly for the first crew journey. First thing, obviously, proximity. At just 4.3 light-years away, Proxima Centauri is by far the closest star that might harbor a habitable planet. This distance makes it within reach for current and near future propulsion technologies, particularly if we focus on speeds achievable via nuclear fusion or antimatter engines. Planetary habitable potential. Proxima Centauri B represents one of the best candidates for finding extraterrestrial life, or at least studying Earth-like conditions in another solar system. Understanding whether life could exist there or whether the planet has its own unique evolutionary story could answer the profound questions about our place in the universe. Scientific interest. The Alpha Centauri system, including Proxima Centauri, offers a unique opportunity for researchers to investigate stars in close proximity to each other, enabling competitive studies of different stellar environments. Proxima Centauri's proximity to Alpha Centauri A and B allows for a diverse range of astrophysical research, making this mission valuable from a scientific standpoint. Technological feasibility. Reaching Proxima Centauri is more feasible than traveling to more distant stars. As we consider the future development of propulsion systems capable of achieving significant fractions of speed of light, Proxima Centauri remains the most realistic option for the first interstellar mission within the next few centuries. While stars like Alpha Centauri A and B or Barnard star are certainly interesting, Proxima Centauri offers a unique combination of proximity, scientific interest, and planetary potential. It's not the largest or brightest star, but it may be the most promising target for humanity's first leap beyond the solar system. So Proxima Centauri and its orbiting planet Proxima Centauri b represent the most viable and scientifically exciting destination for humanity's first crewed interstellar journey. The planet's location in the habitable zone of its star, combined with the relatively short distance of just 4.3 light-years, makes it the perfect candidate for exploration. It stands as the best option for humanity to push the boundaries of space exploration and search for life beyond our home planet. Section 2. Engine propulsion type and parameters. Nuclear fusion versus antimatter. As humanity ventures toward the stars, one of the most critical decisions for an interstellar exploration is the selection of an appropriate propulsion system. The immense distances involved, combined with the need for both crew safety and efficient fuel use, demand advanced propulsion technologies that can operate at significant fraction of the speed of light. In the next 2 centuries, the most likely contenders for this role are nuclear fusion and antimatter engines. These propulsion systems offer theoretical capabilities to propel spacecraft to high velocities, but each has its own set of challenges and limitations. Nuclear fusion propulsion. Nuclear fusion, the process that powers the stars, holds promise as a viable propulsion system for interstellar missions. In fusion, light atomic nuclei, typically isotopes of hydrogen, such as deuterium and tritium, fuse together to form heavier elements, releasing an enormous amount of energy. On Earth, replicating the extreme conditions of pressure and temperature necessary for fusion is a considerable challenge, but various experimental reactors are moving closer to achieving sustained fusion reactions. In the context of interstellar propulsion, nuclear fusion engines would rely on this principle to generate thrust. The fuel for such engines could be abundant, as deuterium, one of the main fuels for the fusion reactions, is found in water, and tritium can be bred from lithium. Fusion-powered spacecraft could in theory achieve velocities up to 0.1 c, so 10% of speed of light, or slightly higher. One of the proposed concepts for nuclear fusion propulsion is direct fusion drive, in which fusion reactors occur within defined magnetic or inertial confinement systems. This would generate high-energy charged particles, which would then be expelled out of a nozzle to produce thrust. Another possibility is the fusion rocket, where the fusion energy is to heat a propellant that is then expelled for thrust. So advantages of nuclear fusion. Abundant fuel. So fusion fuels are more abundant and easier to extract than fission fuels that can be sourced from water or lithium. High efficiency. Fusion offers a high energy density compared to chemical propulsion, meaning spacecraft could carry less fuel for longer journeys. Less radiation. Unlike fission, fusion reactors produce less hazardous radiation, making it a safer long-term option for crewed missions. Now about disadvantages of nuclear fusion. So technological challenges. Achieving controlled sustained fusion reactions at a scale suitable for propulsion is still in the experimental stages. The International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor project is a major step toward demonstrating controlled fusion, but it is not yet capable of generating more power than it consumes. So it consumes more power than it generates. And then limited speed. Even with most advanced fusion reactors, speeds beyond 0.3 C, so 30% of speed of light, is uh, unlikely in the foreseeable future. Now, the another option is, as we said, antimatter propulsion. Antimatter propulsion presents a more exotic and powerful method for interstellar travel. When antimatter comes into contact with matter, both are annihilated, releasing an enormous amount of energy. According to Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared, so the energy released from even tiny amounts of antimatter is extraordinarily high, which makes antimatter a potential first source for interstellar missions. Theoretically, antimatter-based propulsion could enable spacecraft to achieve speeds approaching the speed of light. So imagine, close to speed of light, making it the most promising candidate for achieving highest velocities. The most well-known concept for antimatter propulsion is the antimatter rocket, in which antimatter such as positrons or antiprotons is introduced into a containment system where it annihilates with regular matter, creating high-energy particles that can be directed out of spacecraft's exhaust nozzle. The energy released from these annihilations would provide propulsion, while antimatter drives could potentially achieve up to 0.9 C or even 0.99 C. Significant technological advancements would be required to make it a reality. Advantages of antimatter. So thing number one, extremely high efficiency. Antimatter reactions release orders of magnitude more energy than any other known fuel source, including nuclear fusion. Second, potential for high speeds. So theoretically, antimatter propulsion could allow spacecraft to travel at velocities approaching the speed of light. So almost very close speed of light, vastly reducing travel times to distant stars. Now let's talk about disadvantages of antimatter. Production of antimatter is extremely difficult and expensive to produce. So as of today, antimatter production is minuscule and requires immense amount of energy. The cost of producing antimatter for even a small mission would be just astronomical. Storage and containment. Antimatter cannot be stored directly in normal containers as it would annihilate upon contact with metal. So when it goes with regular metal, whatever the container is, it will annihilate and explode in a reaction. Advanced magnetic or electromagnetic traps are required to contain antimatter, which represents significant engineering challenges. And then, of course, safety concerns. The annihilation of antimatter with metal releases vast amounts of energy in the form of radiation, making antimatter-based propulsion a hazardous proposition. So if you compare nuclear fusion and antimatter propulsion, uh, that's how it looks like energy density. So antimatter propulsion is obviously much denser, like extremely high. It is like from 1 billion to 1 trillion megajoules per kilogram, whenever nuclear fusion is just a couple of million megajoules per kilogram. Maximum speed for nuclear fusion is like just 0.1 C to 0.3 C, like 10 to 30% of speed of light, as we said. Whenever with antimatter propulsion is from 90% to 99% of speed of light, and even further. Technological readiness. Nuclear fusion, as far as I know, based on all of the information, all of the research and calculations I have made, is like something next 20 to 50 years, at least at the end of the century. Whenever antimatter propulsion is conceptual stages, not yet feasible, nothing even close. Fuel availability, so nuclear fusion is abundant, so achievable. We can harvest it from water and lithium whenever antimatter is like extremely rare and requires like massive energy to get it. And when it comes to safety, again, nuclear fusion is safer, and antimatter is highly dangerous, and cost is high for nuclear fusion, but probably manageable. And for antimatter propulsion, it's so complicated and it's so conceptual state that we don't even know, like incredibly expensive probably and unfeasible at present. So while antimatter propulsion has an immense theoretical potential, the technology required to produce, store, and utilize antimatter effectively remains far beyond our current capabilities. As of now, producing even milligrams of antimatter takes enormous amounts of energy and resources. Current antimatter production is limited to experimental particle accelerators, which only produce tiny amounts of antimatter for short-lived interactions. So it's just like almost theoretical. For antimatter propulsion to become feasible within the next 2 centuries, significant breakthroughs would be required in several areas: efficient antimatter production, cost reduction, storage technologies, safety protocols. While this is theoretically possible, it is unlikely that antimatter engines will be ready for uh, deployment by the early 2200. So it is more reasonable to expect nuclear fusion propulsion to be more immediate option for crewed interstellar missions. So, for the first interstellar mission, a nuclear fusion engine seems to be the most realistic and achievable option within the next 2 centuries. The technical challenges of antimatter are insurmountable in the short term, while fusion propulsion holds the promise of feasible speeds and energy output within generation of or two of development. Given the substantial progress being made in fusion research, it is conceivable that nuclear fusion propulsion could be a key technology for interstellar exploration in the coming centuries. Section number 3. Speed, achievable velocities for interstellar travel. One of the most critical factors in planning an interstellar mission is determining how fast the spacecraft can travel. Given the vast distances between the stars, achieving even a fraction of the speed of light, denoted as c means speed of light, is a monumental challenge. In this section, we will explore the achievable speeds for a crewed interstellar mission within the next 200 years, considering current and the future propulsion technologies such as nuclear fusion. Interstellar distances are immense, even by the standards of our solar system. Proxima Centauri, the closest star to the Earth, is at 4.3 light-years away, represents a daunting target for interstellar travel. A spacecraft traveling at speeds of comparable to those of current space probes, typically around 0.0001 c or 1 over 10,000 of speed of light, would take tens of thousands of years to reach even the nearest stars. Therefore, to make interstellar travel feasible within human lifetime, we need propulsion systems capable of achieving much higher speeds. ideally significant fraction of speed of light. So initially targeting speeds 0.1 C to 0.3 C used by nuclear fusion propulsion. Given the expected advancements in nuclear fusion propulsion technology, it is realistic to target speeds of the range of 0.1 C to 0.3 C for the first crewed interstellar missions. Achieving speeds beyond 0.3 C would require propulsion systems that are not within our reach, such as an antimatter engine. For the purpose of this mission, we will focus on the most feasible option, so nuclear fusion. So based on my knowledge and whatever research we made, I think that in like next 2 centuries, next 200 years, it is more predictable that first interstellar travel will be powered by nuclear fusion. It is more feasible, safer, more achievable, more realistic. The only bad news, as we said, is like it can only achieve speeds from zero point 0.1 to 0.3 C, so it's obviously not zero point 0.9 or 0.99 C, but that's what it is. In nearest future, and in nearest future I mean like in 2 centuries, uh, I think that's the only thing achievable. So nuclear fusion propulsion systems, uh, which rely on harnessing the power of fusion reactions to propel a spacecraft, are expected to be capable of achieving speeds of 0.1 C to 0.3 C. While this may seem relatively modest compared to speed of light, such velocities would significantly reduce travel times to distant stars. So speed versus time. The equation for calculating the time required to reach star is relatively simple. Time equals d over v. Like t is the time it takes to travel to the star in years, d is the distance to the star in light years, and v is the velocity of the spacecraft in terms of like speed of light. So c. Let's apply this equation to the mission to Proxima Centauri, which is located 4.3 light years away, for different velocities achievable by a nuclear fusion propulsion system. So we can calculate the estimated time it would take to reach the star. So at 0.1 C, or 10% of the speed of light, it's 43 years. At 0.2 C, so 20% speed of light, it's 21.5 years. And at 0.3 C, 30% of speed of light, which is most favorable and targeted speed for nuclear fusion engines, it will be just 14.3 years. So achieving the speeds of 0.1 C to 0.3 C with nuclear fusion propulsion is theoretically possible, but it requires significant technological advancements. Nuclear fusion is an energy-dense and efficient power source that could potentially propel spacecraft at these speeds. The key factors influencing achievable speeds are the efficiency of the fusion engine, mass of the spacecraft, and the energy available for propulsion. Given the current trajectory of nuclear fusion research, it is likely that interstellar travel speeds of 0.1 C to 0.3 C could be achieved within the next 200 years, especially if we focus on the development of more efficient fusion reactors. However, it is important to note that even at these speeds, travel times to distant stars will still span several decades, making such missions a significant investment of resources and effort. While nuclear fusion offers a more immediate solution, antimatter propulsion remains the ideal propulsion system for faster travel. As discussed in Section 2, antimatter has the potential to provide energy densities orders of a magnitude higher than nuclear fusion, theoretically allowing for spacecraft to reach speeds of approaching 0.9 C or even 0.99 C. These velocities would dramatically reduce travel times to interstellar destinations. For example, a spacecraft traveling at 0.9 C reached Proxima Centauri in just 4.78 years, while the spacecraft traveling at 0.99 C would make the journey in just 4.3 years, close to the travel time at light speed, but still attainable with the antimatter propulsion. However, as noted previously, antimatter propulsion is not yet feasible, and its development remains a distant prospect. As the spacecraft approaches relativistic speeds, so significant fraction of the speed of light, relativistic effects, particularly time dilation, become more pronounced. This phenomenon, predicted by Albert Einstein's theory of special relativity, implies that the time will pass more slowly for the crew aboard the spacecraft compared to the observers located on Earth. The faster the spacecraft moves, the more noticeable these relativistic effects will be. For an instance, if a spacecraft were traveling at 0.1 c, the time dilation effect would cause time to pass at a slower rate for the crew compared to people on Earth. However, this effect would not be as pronounced at speeds lower than 0.3 c, and the crew might still experience a reasonable length of time during the journey. At 0.3 c, the mission to Proxima Centauri would take approximately 14.33 years, but only about 2.5 years would pass for the crew on board, depending on the exact velocity and the relative effects of time dilation. So, for a crewed interstellar mission targeting Proxima Centauri, the achievable speeds and their corresponding travel times can be summarized like this: 0.1 c, 43 years on Earth time, 40.5 years on crew time. 0.2 c, 21.5 years on Earth time, 22.25 years for crew time. 0.3 c, what we are targeting and what is achievable, and said many times that it is doable by nuclear fusion engine. 14.33 years on Earth time, 13.5 years on crew time. 0.9 c, 4.78 years on Earth time and 3.52 years crew time. And 0.99 c, 4.3 years on Earth time, 2.9 years for crew time. And as the speed increases, relativistic effects become more and more noticeable. And at 0.9999349 after zero, the speed will be so close to speed of light that time dilation might be 20, 50, 100 times uh, more than for an observer on Earth, which means that travel to Proxima Centauri will be 4.3 years, obviously on Earth time, but on for cruise time, on spaceship time, it might be even like 1 month. So for the crewed interstellar mission, speeds up to 0.3 c, 30% of speed of light, are the most achievable with nuclear fusion propulsion in the next 2 centuries. These speeds would make it possible to reach nearby stars like Proxima Centauri within human lifetime. So it's achievable. While antimatter propulsion remains distant prospect, its potential to reach speed 0.9 c or 0.99 c could revolutionize interstellar travel in the distant future, theoretically reduce travel times significantly. Section number 4: Relativistic effects, Lorentz factor, and their influence on spaceship time. As a spacecraft approaches relativistic speeds close to a significant fraction of the speed of light, it must contend with several profound effects predicted by Einstein's theory of special relativity. These effects include time dilation, length contraction, and the increase in mass as the velocity of an object increases. Among these, time dilation is perhaps the most notable when considering long duration interstellar missions, especially for the crew aboard the spacecraft. In this section, we will explore how the Lorentz factor quantifies these relativistic effects and examine how they will impact the passage of the time aboard the spacecraft compared to Earth. So time dilation, the core of relativity. Time dilation occurs because, according to special relativity, the passage of time is not absolute. When an object moves at high velocities relative to an observer, time for the object or the crew aboard the spacecraft will appear to slow down as seen by the observer. The effect becomes more pronounced as the object's velocity approaches the speed of light. The mathematical relationship for time dilation is given by the following equation. Delta t prime equals delta t over square root from 1 minus v squared over c squared, where delta t prime is the time interval experienced by observer on the moving spacecraft, so proper time. Delta t is the interval experienced by an observer at rest, air time. V is the velocity of the spacecraft, and c is, of course, speed of light. The equation shows that the velocity v approaches the speed of light c, the denominator approaches zero, causing the time dilation factor to increase. This means that for a spacecraft traveling at relativistic speeds, the time on board will pass more slowly relative to Earth. The Lorentz factor or gamma factor is a dimensionless quantity that describes the degree of time dilation, length contraction, and relativistic mass increase. It is defined as gamma equals 1 over square root from 1 minus v square over c square. The Lorentz factor increases as the spacecraft velocity increases, approaching infinity as the speed of the spacecraft approaches the speed of light. This factor is crucial in understanding the relativistic effects on both time and space. Examples of time dilation for various speeds. So we made like simple math and calculated for different speeds what will be time dilation and all other relativistic effects. At 0.1 c, 10% of the speed of light, gamma equals 1.005. At 0.2 c, so 20% of speed of light, gamma equals 1.02. At 0.3 c, 30% of speed of light, gamma equals 1.048. So at 0.3 c, time on spacecraft, so what we are discussing now and what is more achievable and predictable. So time would pass 4.8% slower than on Earth, but the difference is still relatively small for crew. At 0.45 c, which is half of the speed of light, it will be 1.15. At 0.7 c, it will be 1.4. At 0.9, it will be 2.29. And then at 0.99 c, it will be 7. At 0.99939, 99.9% of speed of light, it means 99.9% of speed of light, it will be 22. So 22 times slower will pass time on for an observer on a spaceship than for observer on Earth. So if Earth time will be still, for instance, 4.3 years to travel to Proxima Centauri, then at this speed it will be like 22 times less. So which will be literally like 2 or 3 months. So relativistic effects happen on different things, as we say, it's length contraction and other things too, not only just time dilation, but obviously time dilation is most important thing what we face during the interstellar travel. So in addition to time dilation, special relativity also predicts length contraction. As the spacecraft travels at the relativistic speeds, its length along the direction of motion will appear contracted from the perspective of an observer at rest on Earth. This effect is given by equation where L prime equals L over gamma, where L prime is the length of the spacecraft in motion, contracted length, and L is spacecraft's proper length, rest length, and gamma is the Lorentz factor. For example, if spacecraft has length of 100 meters at rest, at 0.9 c, the contracted length would be 43.6 meters. This effect, while dramatic at high speeds, would not significantly impact the design or operation of spacecraft at lower speeds, where the contraction factor is much smaller, obviously. Time dilation will have profound effects on the crew's experience of the mission. Even at the speeds as low as 0.3 c, the crew will experience a slightly shorter mission than those on Earth, but the difference will not be dramatic. However, at higher relativistic speeds, such as 0.9 c, time dilation will dramatically shorten the subjective duration of the journey for the crew. For example, if a spacecraft traveling at 0.3 c reaches Proxima Centauri in 14.33 years, according to Earth clocks, the crew would experience around 13.5 years at 0.9 c. The same journey would take just 4.78 years on Earth, but the crew would experience 2.2 years aboard this spacecraft. The phenomenon could make long duration missions far more feasible from the crew's perspective, as the subjective duration of the journey would be shorter. However, the effects on communication with Earth would be significant. For missions traveling at relativistic speeds, real-time communication with Earth would become impractical, as signals would take longer to travel between the spacecraft and Earth. In practice, communication would be delayed by the relativistic travel times, requiring autonomous decision making and problem solving on the spacecraft. So we can summarize briefly Lorentz factor and like relativistic speed and make some comparisons, like brief comparisons. At 0.1 seeds, 0.5% slower. At 0.2 seeds, 2% slower. At 0.3 seeds, 4.8% slower, as we said before, for our scenario. For 0.5 seeds, 15.5% slower. For 0.7 seeds, 40% slower. For 0.9 seeds, 56.4% slower. For 0.99 C, it's 85.4% slower, and for 0.999 C, so 99.9% of speed of light, it's 98% slower. So is the contraction. So is the contraction. The Lorentz factor, gamma, applies in the same way for time dilation and for length contraction. Relativistic effects, particularly time dilation, will be significant factors in design and experience of a crewed interstellar mission. At velocities of 0.3 c and beyond, time will pass much more slowly for the crew compared to Earth, allowing them to complete long missions in what feels like a much shorter time. This phenomenon could be crucial for making interstellar travel feasible, as it would mitigate the psychological and logistical challenges of spending decades or even centuries in space. However, these effects must be taken into account when planning communication with Earth, spacecraft design, and mission logistics. Section 5. Spaceship type and size. Designing a spacecraft capable of crewed interstellar travel presents an enormous challenge, especially when factoring in the vast distances, prolonged travel times, and the need for self-sufficiency over potentially decades or even centuries. The spacecraft must not only be capable of achieving relativistic speeds, but also support human life and ensure the physical and psychological well-being of the crew over long duration missions. In this section, we will explore the key characteristics and design considerations for a spacecraft suitable for interstellar travel, including its type, size, structural integrity, life support systems. We will also examine the practical aspects of artificial gravity, fuel storage, and other mission-critical features. Spaceship type. The type of the spacecraft chosen for a crewed interstellar mission would likely resemble a hybrid between modern space exploration vehicles and concepts derived from advanced propulsion technologies. Given the scale and the complexity of such mission, the spacecraft would need to incorporate multiple modules for different purposes, including propulsion, life support, scientific research, and habitation. Here are some possible uh, spacecraft designs. Long hull design. The spacecraft could be designed with a long cylindrical toroidal shape to reduce drag and optimize the internal arrangement of the crew quarters, propulsion system, and fuel storage. A long-hull design maximizes the use of space for habitation while maintaining structural integrity during the journey. Additionally, such designs could minimize radiation exposure by allowing the crew to live in the inner parts of the ship, shielded by the outer hull. Nuclear fusion propulsion. Given the nuclear fusion propulsion is expected to be the most likely option for interstellar travel in next 200 years, like we said, the spacecraft would likely incorporate large fusion reactors designed to provide sustained thrust over long periods. These fusion reactors would require significant shielding, cooling systems, and energy generation capacity to power both the propulsion and life support systems. And then modular approach. A modular approach might be taken where different sections of the spacecraft, such as propulsion systems, science labs, and living quarters, can be constructed and launched separately and then assembled in space. This would allow more efficient manufacturing and assembly and provide more flexibility in the design of each module. The size of spacecraft for interstellar travel is one of the most difficult factors to determine, as it must be large enough to support the crew, store uh, sufficient fuel and supplies, and withstand the stresses of high-speed travel. You can draw comparisons to modern spacecraft and apply assumptions assumptions based on current technology and make an overall estimation. A rough estimation for length of interstellar spacecraft would be placed it at approximately 100 meters, 328 feet, or roughly 3 times the length of the largest commercial airliners. This would provide uh, ample place for crew quarters, laboratories, propulsion, and shielding. For comparison, NASA's proposed Icarus fusion-powered spacecraft is projected to be around 100 meters in length. So obviously we don't know exactly how long it will be, but based on again on an information and calculations we have made, the minimum length will be around 100 meters. It may be even much larger, like 200 or 300 meters. The brief idea is that such interstellar spaceship will be multiple times, like or at least couple of times bigger than biggest commercial airliners we know today, like Airbus A380 or Boeing 747. So it will be enormous. The spacecraft width and height would likely proportionate to the length of the ensure stability during travel. The width might be around 40 meters and the height approximately like 25 meters. These dimensions would allow for a sufficient amount of internal space for multiple decks, providing room for habitation, exercise areas, common spaces, and facilities for long duration living. The mass of the spacecraft is heavily dependent on the materials used for construction, the type of propulsion system, and the design considerations for and then the design considerations for life support and radiation shielding. For a spacecraft with nuclear fusion engine, we can estimate that spacecraft would weigh something like between from 500 to 1,000 tons, maybe even more, maybe even more. We should consider that it will be like very long travel, couple of years, maybe decades, as we said, and like entire life supports, like including everything we know in everyday life, must be there on spaceship. So it should be like gigantic. The estimate accounts for the need for radiation protection, shielding from cosmic rays, life support systems, and propulsion system. Given the scale of such mission, it is reasonable to assume that a ship of this magnitude would be several times the size of modern interplanetary spacecraft like the International Space Station, which weighs around 420 tons. Structural integrity and materials. To withstand the harsh conditions of deep space, the spacecraft would need to be constructed from advanced materials capable of withstanding the stresses associated with relativistic travel. Current materials such as aluminum alloys and carbon composites are insufficient for such missions, as they would be vulnerable to damage from high-speed impacts with micrometeoroids and cosmic radiation. Future interstellar spacecraft would need to use advanced materials such as graphene and carbon nanotubes. These materials are highly resistant to both radiation and mechanical stress and would offer exceptional strength to weight ratios. Their ability to conduct heat and electricity would also be advantageous for spacecraft systems. Tungsten and boron carbide used in the areas requiring high resistance to heat and radiation. These materials would form part of the spacecraft's external sheet. They could protect against high velocity particles, cosmic rays, and other forms of space debris. And radiation shielding. The spacecraft would need an advanced radiation shielding system to protect the crew from the harmful effects of cosmic rays, solar flares, and other forms of radiation. This could include a combination of magnetic fields, water-based shields, and passive materials like hydrogen-rich polymers. Then again, we come to artificial gravity. This is also a very important thing. One of the most important features for the crew's long-term health and well-being during the journey is the creation of artificial gravity. Long-term exposure to microgravity has been shown to cause various health issues for astronauts, such as muscle atrophy, bone density loss, and the fluid redistribution. To mitigate these issues, the spacecraft would need to generate artificial gravity. The most feasible way to generate artificial gravity on an interstellar spacecraft through centrifugal force. This could be achieved by rotating parts of the spacecraft, such as a ring or toroidal section, to simulate gravity. The rotation of the spacecraft would generate an outward force that would push objects and crew members toward the outer wall of the rotation section, creating sensation similar to gravity. Rotating habitating module. The spacecraft could have a rotating section where the crew would spend most of their time. This module would spin at a rate sufficient to generate 1 g gravity, so Earth gravity, which is ideal level of gravity to maintain muscle and bone health, obviously. Design considerations for rotation. To minimize any negative effects from rotation, such as dizziness or disorientation, the spacecraft rotation would need to be carefully controlled. The rotation speed and radius of the spinning section would need to be optimized to create artificial gravity without inducing adverse effects like Coriolis forces, which would affect movement and comfort. Given the immense energy demands of an interstellar mission, the spacecraft would require a robust power generation system. A fusion-powered propulsion system would likely require a substantial amount of power to initiate and sustain reactions. In addition, the ship's life support systems, artificial gravity systems, and scientific equipment would all demand continuous power. So fusion reactors and nuclear fusion reactors capable of producing large amounts of energy would likely be the primary power source. Fusion reactors could provide power for propulsion system as well as for the spacecraft's other functions. These reactors would need to be shelled and self-sustaining, requiring no external fuel after launch. Then energy storage. The spacecraft would need to store energy in the form of advanced batteries or supercapacitors to handle energy surges and to ensure that the spacecraft remains functional during periods when the fusion reactor is not operating at full capacity. And then fuel. The spacecraft's fuel for propulsion would also be major concern. If a Using fusion-based propulsion system, the spacecraft could carry hydrogen or deuterium as fuel, which could be used in nuclear fusion reactions. A small amount of antimatter might also be considered for boosting propulsion capabilities, though this would likely be a very small component of the overall fuel system. Designing an interstellar spacecraft presents unique challenges, not only because of the technological hurdles involved in propulsion and fuel, but also due to human factor. The spacecraft must provide a stable, life-sustaining environment for the crew while mitigating the effects of long-duration space travel, including microgravity and radiation exposure. The spacecraft would likely be a long cylindrical toroidal design, measuring at least 100 meters in length and weighing between 500 to 1,000 metric tons without fuel. So this is very important. From 500 to 1,000 tons, we are talking about it, it's without fuel. It would be rely on advanced materials and a nuclear fusion propulsion system capable of achieving relativistic speeds. Artificial gravity would be generated using centrifugal force, and energy for the spacecraft would come from the, again, fusion reactors. So next, we will discuss the mission goals and objectives of interstellar crewed mission. Section number 6. Mission goals. The primary goal of any interstellar mission is to explore and expand the understanding of the universe beyond our solar system. Given the distances involved, the challenges of interstellar travel, the mission would need to be meticulously planned with the clear and well-defined objectives. The mission goals for a crewed interstellar mission to a distant star system like Proxima Centauri would likely be combination of scientific discovery, technology demonstration, and human exploration. These goals would help ensure that the mission provides maximum scientific value and paves the way for the future interstellar travel endeavors. So primary scientific goals will include obviously exoplanet research and the Proxima Centauri b. The most pressing scientific goal would be to investigate the exoplanet Proxima Centauri b, which is located within the habitable zone of Proxima Centauri. Proxima Centauri b has been subject of much interest because it lies in a region where liquid water could exist, making it a prime candidate for the search for life beyond Earth. The spacecraft would be equipped with a range of scientific instruments to study the planet's atmosphere, surface conditions, potential biosignatures, and other characteristics. Atmospheric analysis. Instruments like spectrometers and atmospheric sensors would measure the composition of Proxima Centauri b's atmosphere, searching for signs of habitability such as oxygen, methane, and other gases indicative of biological processes. Surface imaging, like high resolution cameras and sensors would capture detailed images of the planet's surface, looking for any signs of geological activity or potential landforms that suggest the presence of liquid water or an active biosphere. So that something is ongoing. And then orbital and environmental studies. Obviously, the spacecraft would also study the star system as a whole, including the dynamics between Proxima Centauri b and the other bodies in the system. Understanding the planet's orbit, magnetic field, and radiation environment would provide crucial insights into the planet's potential for hosting life. Star system exploration is important also. Proxima Centauri is part of Alpha Centauri star system, which includes two other stars, Alpha Centauri A and Alpha Centauri B. These stars, particularly Alpha Centauri A, are often considered prime targets for future missions due to their similarities to the Sun. The spacecraft would conduct flybys of these stars, collecting data and on their stellar activity, composition, and the presence of any potential habitable planets in their respective habitable zones. These observations would help expand our understanding of the most common types of stars and their potential to host Earth-like planets. And then also very interesting thing, interstellar medium studies. As the spacecraft travels through interstellar space, it would encounter the interstellar medium, a sparse collection of gas, dust, and cosmic rays that exist between star systems. Studying the interstellar medium provides valuable information about the environment of deep space, such as the properties of cosmic dust, interstellar magnetic fields, and the composition of surrounding void. Instruments on the spacecraft would be designed to measure density, temperature, and chemical composition of um, interstellar medium, helping astronomers learn more about interstellar environment and potential hazards uh, posed by cosmic rays. Astrobiology and habitability research. One of the overarching goals of the mission would be to investigate the potential for life beyond Earth. So that's what all world is interested. This includes studying the conditions necessary for life to exist and how might rise on other planets. By analyzing Proxima Centauri B and other exoplanets in the star system, the mission could help answer fundamental questions about the universality universality of life. The spacecraft would be equipped with biological sensors and astrobiological instruments to search for any signs of life, past or present, on other planets. Uh, in addition to the scientific objectives, the mission would serve as a technological demonstration of humanity's ability to achieve interstellar travel. Several key technological advancements would need to be tested and proven during the mission. Propulsion technology. One of the most critical aspects of mission would be testing the propulsion system, which in this case would likely be a nuclear fusion, like we said, nuclear fusion engine. The spacecraft would demonstrate the feasibility of achieving relativistic speeds and sustaining propulsion over long distances. This would provide invaluable data on the performance of fusion-powered engines, including their efficiency, fuel consumption, and ability to operate in the harsh conditions of deep space. Life support and sustainability. The spacecraft would serve as test bed for advanced life support systems, including radiation protection, oxygen generation, food production, and water recycle. Maintaining a habitable environment for the crew over several decades would be a monumental challenge. Demonstrating viability of these systems would be crucial for future interstellar missions. The success of these life support systems would help establish the groundwork for future long-duration crewed missions to distant star systems. And then again, artificial gravity systems, which is also very interesting thing, and many of us have seen in like science fiction movies, like Red Planet, for instance. This key technology to demonstrate would be artificial gravity systems using centrifugal force to simulate gravity in the rotating sections of the spacecraft. Would require careful engineering to ensure the health and comfort of the crew. Successful implementation of the technology would pave the way for future spacecraft designed for prolonged deep space missions. Radiation shielding and spacecraft integrity. So the spacecraft would need to demonstrate effective shielding from cosmic radiation and solar particles. This would involve testing new materials and radiation protection techniques that would be necessary for long-term duration space travel, especially in the higher radiation environments on interstellar space. The spacecraft would also need to demonstrate its structural integrity when exposed to high-speed impacts with the micrometeoroids and the other space debris. Human exploration. So beyond scientific discovery, the mission would provide valuable experience in human space exploration. The astronauts aboard would gain first-hand knowledge of the effects of long-duration space travel on the human body and psyche. This could include studying the impacts of prolonged isolation, space radiation, and effects of artificial gravity on human health. The crew would also be responsible for operating the spacecraft, monitoring the propulsion system, conducting scientific experiments, and making critical decisions in real time. The insights gained from the human exploration would be invaluable for future deep space missions. Interstellar communication and data transmission is crucial as well. An interstellar mission would require new approaches to communication over vast distances. The spacecraft would need to test advanced communication systems capable of transmitting data back to Earth across light years. This would involve the use of high gain antennas possibly augmented by laser communication technologies to make and contact with Earth. The crew would be tasked with processing and analyzing the massive amount of data generated by the mission, including scientific observations, environmental measurements, and system performance data. And then cultural and philosophical impact. While mission's primary focus would be on scientific research and technological development, it would also have significant cultural and philosophical implications. The exploration of distant star systems would challenge humanity's understanding of its place in the universe and spark debates about the potential for extraterrestrial life. The mission would inspire future generations of scientists, engineers, and explorers, encouraging further advancements in space exploration and fostering global collaboration. The mission goals for crewed interstellar journey to Proxima Centauri would be diverse and ambitious, encompassing wide-range scientific, technological, and human exploration objectives. The primary scientific goals would focus on the study of Proxima Centauri b, other exoplanets in the system, and, and the interstellar medium, while the technological goals would center around the development and demonstration of advanced propulsion, life support, and radiation shielding systems. Additionally, the mission would offer valuable insights into human experience of space exploration and the long-term sustainability of deep space missions. By achieving these objectives, the mission would not only expand our understanding of the universe but also lay the foundation for future interstellar endeavors. And then next we will explore the time scale and time frame of such mission. And it will be probably most interesting part of our today's video because as I search through internet and I read a lot of like scientific articles, it's not very common to discuss about like time frames, timelines. So here and there some information is scattered, like we will probably use like nuclear fusion engine, or probably the aircraft will be this size, or probably the speed will be somewhere around like zero point 0.5 c, like half of the speed of light or 30% of speed of light. But like overall information, like reconstruction, how to do and when it will be doable, first crewed interstellar uh, mission is not discussed so much. So let's inquire a little bit further and continue in next chapter. Section number 7: Timescale and timeframes. The timescale of a crewed interstellar mission to Proxima Centauri is one of the most critical factors in determining its feasibility. A mission to a distant star system like Proxima Centauri, located 4.24 light years from Earth, would require careful planning to ensure that it aligns with technological, financial, and human resource constraints. In this section, we will explore the expected time frames of such a mission, from planning and development to travel and arrival, factoring in the technological advancements, propulsion systems, and human capabilities that would need to be in place within the next 2 centuries. Before embarkment on any interstellar mission, a significant amount of time will be required for mission planning, technology development, and construction. Given the complexity and the unprecedented nature of a crewed mission to another star system, the planning phase would likely take several decades to complete. So, key stages include conceptual design. So, design might the conceptual design of some point already exists, to be honest, and those designs were existing from I think like from 70s. But like more detailed conceptual design uh, develop the actual spaceship and technology will take again decades. I think like something like from 2070 almost to the end of this century, 2100, we will be still in a process of developing conceptual design. Theoretical models of fusion propulsion, artificial gravity, uh, life support systems, and radiation shielding would be developed. During this time, humanity would likely continue refining and its understanding of space travel, advanced propulsion systems, and the challenges of deep space exploration. At the same time, robotic missions to nearby stars and exoplanets such as Proxima Centauri could be launched to gather preliminary data about target star system. So there were conversation and some talks and concept design about probes by solar sail, for instance. Those things should be all carried out before crewed mission. So entire 21st century will be between those technological preparation for technological developments, just only about theory. And then in 22nd century, beginning from the second half of 21st century, probably maybe as early, and the 22nd century, uh, the necessary propulsion and life support technologies would need to develop and tested. Achieving practical nuclear fusion propulsion, arguably the most likely propulsion system for interstellar travel, will be a major hurdle. This would require advancements in fusion research, nuclear engineering, and power generation. It is likely that nuclear fusion technology for space propulsion will be demonstrated in early 22nd century, probably in between something 2100 1150 year, with prototypes tested in the following decades. Additional advancements in artificial gravity, radiation shielding, and cryogenic life support systems would need to be tested in space environments. By in the middle of 22nd century, or maybe at the end of the 22nd century. So, at first, all these theories should be fulfilled, all concept designs should be provided, then it should become feasible, technology should be in place, a lot of things should be tested, a lot of things should be made in parallel, a lot of robotic missions should be sent to stars, and then after gathering and collecting all this information, we will be ready to build first interstellar spaceship, which I'm expecting to be somewhere in the middle of uh, 22nd century, probably 2150. So let's assume like construction of the spacecraft would begin in 2150 with materials, components, and modules being assembled in orbit on the Moon. This approach would allow for greater efficiency in construction and transportation of materials to space. Robotic assembly technologies would need to be prepared to facilitate the building of large, complex spacecraft capable of housing crews for decades. By the late 22nd century, or beginning of 23rd century, the crewed mission would enter the final phase of preparation. This would involve recruiting, training, and simulating the deep space environment for astronauts. The crew would undergo rigorous physical and psychological training to ensure they could endure the demands of long duration space missions. Scientists, engineers, and medical experts would be involved in the preparation to ensure that every aspect of mission life support, scientific research, crew health, and mission management is accounted for. The final preparations would also involve the testing of the spacecraft systems in simulated deep space environments, verifying all hardware and software for long-term functionality. The stage would take approximately 30 years to complete, maybe even more, considering the complexity of the mission and the need for contingency plans in case of failure. Once the spacecraft is fully constructed and the crew is ready, the interstellar journey itself would commence. Assuming the use of nuclear fusion propulsion, the spacecraft would reach speeds up to 30% of speed of light. As discussed earlier, the key factor influencing the travel time is the velocity of the spacecraft, which directly impacts the duration of the journey. So I think that finally, with like nuclear fusion reactor, nuclear fusion engine, we will achieve 30% of speed of light, and the journey to Proxima Centauri would like approximately takes 14 years. This is considered a plausible speed for fusion-powered spacecraft and would be the goal for the mission as it strikes a balance between feasibility and travel time. So therefore, at most optimistic estimates, using fusion propulsion and traveling at zero point 0.3 C, the journey would last approximately 14 years. This time frame would make mission feasible within a reasonable time period, with crewed space flight reaching a level of technology that would support such a journey. Relativistic effects during the journey. As the spacecraft approaches relativistic speeds, relativistic effects such as the time dilation and length contraction become increasingly important. These effects would impact both the crew and spacecraft itself. For example, the dilation means that the time would appear to pass much more slowly on the spacecraft relative to observers on Earth, allowing the crew to experience less passage of time. However, as we said, if we focus on zero point 0.3 c, so 30% of speed of light, there is not going to be time dilation very notable. It will be, as we said, 1.048, so 1.05, roughly 1.05. So the Lorentz factor, gamma factor, would approximately be 1.05. This means that every 0.5 years that pass on Earth, only 1 year would pass on the spacecraft. For 14-year journey, the crew would experience only 13.3 years of elapsed time while on Earth. More than 40 years would pass. The same thing will happen about like length contraction. At relativistic speeds, the length of the spacecraft along the direction of travel would contract. At zero point 0.3 c, the spacecraft would appear shorter in the direction of travel to an observer on Earth, though its effect would not be noticeable to the crew, and also there won't be that much change. While these relativistic effects will be significant for the crew, they will have no, little to no impact on the propulsion system, spacecraft, or mission objectives. Assuming the spacecraft reaches Proxima Centauri in 14 years, the next phase of the mission would involve scientific observation and exploration of the star system. This would take several years, as the spacecraft would need to map Proxima Centauri, study its atmosphere, and gather as much data as possible. The exploration phase would likely take anywhere from 3 to 5 years, depending on the complexity of the mission objectives and the findings. Upon arrival at Proxima Centauri, the crew would begin conducting detailed scientific observations, collecting samples, and transmitting data back to Earth. If the mission is successful, the scientific data gathered from Proxima Centauri b could yield groundbreaking information about the potential for life on other planets. The mission could also include the possibility of a return trip to Earth. However, this would require significant resources, including fuel and supplies. Given the immense distance, it is likely that the mission would be a one-way trip for the crew, with robotic systems handling data transmission and any subsequent missions. The timescale of crewed interstellar mission for Proxima Centauri spans several decades, or maybe 2 centuries, like we said. From conceptual design um, from the beginning of 2040s and 2060s, execution in late 21st century or in the middle of 22nd century, the total journey, assuming the nuclear fusion propulsion system, could take approximately 14 years, with the crew experiencing time dilation effects. The mission would likely take a total uh, like 30 to 40 years, including the completion of the exploration and returning back. So if it includes coming back, as propulsion technologies mature and as humanity advances, it is ability to conduct interstellar exploration. These timescales could become a reality by the beginning of 23rd century. And because today is January 16, that's the title on our thumbnail, that let's assume that it will happen on January 16, 2230. January 16, 2230. So beginning of 23rd century. That's the most uh, realistic time frame. The success of such mission would represent the pinnacle of human exploration, providing unprecedented insights into the nature of other star systems, potential for life beyond Earth, and the feasibility of interstellar travel. So that's pretty much for today's episode. If you have any questions or if you want to share any information, please subscribe, leave us comments, leave us questions, and let's discuss further. Thank you for listening, and until next time.